The history of the modern U.S. Army Rangers began in World War II. With America's entry into the Second World War, conventional forces would be used by our country on a scale unprecedented in history, because the threat to liberty was unprecedented. But also, select groups of highly trained fighting men would be used to spearhead critical operations. These men were the Rangers. It was during the D-Day landings at Omaha Beach that General Norman D. Cota gave the now famous command that became the motto of the 75th Ranger Regiment: Rangers lead the way. Thus, the 5th Ranger Battalion broke across the seawall and barbed wire entanglements. They stormed up the pillbox-rimmed heights under intense enemy machine gun and mortar fire to secure the beachhead that would lead to victory. Rangers would distinguish themselves in countless battles that followed. These units would be disbanded after the war, but the Ranger legend had been born. Rangers would be needed again 5 years later during the Korean conflict. Through the grim winter of 1950 and the spring of 1951, Rangers again went into battle. They were elite warriors who served where they were most needed, attached to one regiment, then another. They performed the most dangerous out-front work: scouting, patrolling, raids, ambushes. They spearheaded assaults and served as counterattack forces to regain critical positions. In 1951, Army Chief of Staff General J. Lawton Collins directed that Ranger training be extended to all combat units of the Army, to develop capabilities of carrying out these specialized Ranger-type missions to all Army infantry units. Thus, the first step was taken in creating a permanent Army Ranger force. In 1954, General Matthew B. Ridgway gave additional emphasis to Ranger training when he made it mandatory that all newly commissioned officers of combat units undergo airborne or Ranger training. By 1955, some 70% of regular Army lieutenants had undergone both airborne and Ranger training. Unlike Rangers of other eras who were trained in the United States, some earned the Black Beret and Ranger tab in Vietnam the hard way, training as volunteers on actual combat missions. Only after they had passed the acid test of combat and were accepted by their Ranger peers were they then allowed to wear the Black Beret. The combat effectiveness of the newly established Ranger battalions was tested in 1983 in deployment to the threatened island of Grenada. The mission of the Rangers was to protect the lives of American citizens and to restore democracy to the island. During the operation, codenamed Urgent Fury, the 1st and 2nd Ranger Battalions conducted a daring low-level parachute assault to seize a critical airfield, rescue American citizens, and conduct air assault operations against pockets of resistance.
Late yesterday afternoon, we conducted an air mobile assault and rescued 233 Americans which were on the far side of the island.
With the demonstrated effectiveness of the Ranger Battalions, in 1984, the Department of the Army announced that it was increasing the size of the active duty Ranger force to its highest level in 40 years by forming another Ranger battalion and establishing a Ranger regimental headquarters at Fort Benning, Georgia.
I wanna be an airborne Ranger.
I wanna be an airborne Ranger.
Live me a life of blood and danger.
Live me a life of blood and danger.
Airborne Ranger.
Airborne Ranger.
Blood and danger.
Blood and danger.
I wanna be a scuba diver.
I wanna be a scuba diver.
Jump right in that muddy water.
Jump right in that muddy water.
Muddy water. water.
Muddy water.
Scuba diver.
Scuba diver.